Hello. They say a magician never reveals his secrets. But what about when the trick isn't for the audience? It's for the one person who thought she had me fooled? The irony was almost poetic. I spent my life perfecting illusions, making people believe in the impossible, bending reality to my will. And yet, the biggest illusion of all had been right in front of me, my marriage. Sophia played her role well. Loving wife, supportive partner, my biggest fan. But magic is all about misdirection, and she was counting on me being too distracted to notice where her hands were really going. Except, unlike the audience in my shows, I wasn't blind to the trick. I saw it. I felt it. And I let it happen just long enough to prepare for my grand finale. It started with a phone left carelessly unlocked. A rookie mistake. I wasn't even looking for anything, but when a message preview flashed across the screen, last night was amazing. Can't wait for more. Curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, scrolled, and within seconds, the illusion shattered. Texts. Dozens of them. Some subtle, some explicit, all unmistakably damning. Now, most men would react with rage. They'd confront her immediately, demand answers, make a scene. But that's what separates a magician from an amateur. We don't react, we plan. We control the narrative. I put the phone down exactly as I found it, wiped the smirk off my face, and walked into the living room where Sophia sat, oblivious, scrolling through her own feed. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, babe. How was rehearsal?" "Flawless performance. Almost convincing." I leaned down, kissed her forehead, and said, "Better than ever." That night, as she slept beside me, tangled in my sheets, in my life, in the web of her own lies, I stared at the ceiling and orchestrated the greatest illusion of my career. Sophia thought she had the upper hand, but what she didn't realize was that she wasn't the magician in this relationship. She was the audience, and the show had just begun. There was a time when I thought I had it all. A beautiful wife, a career I was passionate about, a home filled with warmth and laughter. My life wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it was mine, and it felt real. I woke up every morning to the scent of freshly brewed coffee, the gentle hum of Sophia humming some half-forgotten tune in the kitchen, the soft rustling of the newspaper I never really read but pretended to, just for the routine of it. She would kiss me absent-mindedly on the cheek as she passed by, her lips warm, her touch familiar. Our mornings were always the same, a comfortable dance of routine. I'd rehearse my latest illusions in the home studio, refining sleight-of-hand tricks that had taken me years to master. Sophia would wander in sometimes, leaning against the doorframe, watching with playful fascination. "How do you do that?" she'd ask, eyes gleaming with the same wonder she had when we first met. And I would grin, playing along, pretending the trick was more about mystery than skill. "Magic," I'd whisper, making a coin disappear right before her eyes. She would laugh, shaking her head, and I would think, this is happiness. This is how it's supposed to be. Evenings were quieter. We'd sit on the couch, my arm draped lazily around her shoulders, some half-watched show playing in the background while she scrolled through her phone, occasionally showing me something funny or interesting. I didn't mind the silence. It was a comfortable kind, the kind you settle into after years of knowing someone, the kind that makes you believe you're safe. I never noticed the cracks forming beneath the surface. Looking back, there were signs. Small things that should have made me pause, question, wonder. The way she started staying up later than usual, claiming she couldn't sleep. The way she laughed at messages I never got to see, her fingers typing quickly before she'd lock her phone and tuck it under a pillow. The way she stopped asking about my performances, where once she'd been my biggest fan. There were nights when I'd wake up and find her missing from our bed, only to hear the faint murmur of her voice from another room. She'd say she was on a call with her sister, but her sister never mentioned late-night talks when we met for dinner. I should have connected the dots. I should have seen the sleight of hand for what it was, misdirection. And yet, I didn't. Because love makes you blind. Because routine numbs you. Because when you trust someone, truly trust them, you don't look for hidden compartments or secret pockets. You accept what's in front of you as real. Sophia was good at keeping up the illusion. I remember our last anniversary before the truth came out. I had planned something special, an intimate dinner at the very restaurant where we had our first date. She had smiled across the candlelit table, her hand resting on mine, her eyes filled with something I had foolishly mistaken for love. She looked happy, relaxed, content. But now, I wonder if she was thinking of him. I wonder if, even as I poured my heart into that night, she was checking her phone under the table, waiting for a message from someone else. The memory stings now, like a blade I didn't realize had been slipped between my ribs. Back then, I would have laughed if someone told me my marriage was a lie. I would have defended her. Sophia would never. But now, every moment I thought was genuine feels tainted. Every kiss, every laugh, every whispered, "I love you," echoes in my mind like a cruel joke. She was never watching the tricks in my hands. She was watching someone else. And I had been too blinded by love to see the greatest deception of all. It was a Tuesday evening when I first felt it, that subtle, creeping feeling that something was off. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just a small, almost imperceptible shift in the air. The kind of thing your instincts pick up before your mind has the chance to rationalize it away. Sophia had always been predictable. She had her routines, her habits, her little quirks that made life with her familiar. She was never one to leave things unfinished. If she started a conversation, she finished it. If she sent a message, she didn't leave it hanging. If she laughed at something, she shared the joke. But that night, sitting across from me at the dinner table, something was different. She was staring at her phone, fingers moving fast, her lips curling into a small, secretive smile. Normally, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. We both had our lives, our own worlds beyond each other. But it was the way she tilted the screen ever so slightly away from my view that made my gut tighten. "Something funny?" I asked casually, spearing a piece of steak with my fork. She blinked, almost startled, as if she had forgotten I was sitting right there. Oh, just a meme from Lisa." She put the phone down, face down, and forced a quick laugh. "You wouldn't get it. Lisa. Her best friend. The perfect alibi." I nodded, chewing slowly, pretending to accept the answer. But a small voice in the back of my mind whispered, "That's not how she laughs at Lisa's jokes." I let it go for the moment. Later that night, as I was brushing my teeth, I heard her voice from the bedroom. Soft, hushed, a tone I didn't recognize. She wasn't speaking to me. I stepped into the doorway, toothbrush still in hand. "Who's that?" She jolted upright like a deer caught in headlights, clutching her phone just a little too tight. "Lisa," she said again, too quickly. "She's going through something with Greg. Just needed to vent." I nodded, slowly. "Everything okay?" "Yeah. Just girl stuff." She glanced at the time. "It's late, though. I'll call her tomorrow." She ended the call before I could say another word, putting her phone down and stretching like nothing had happened. I didn't press. But I also didn't believe her. Sophia had never been a great liar. She was quick, but not careful. And now that I was watching, I saw what I had been too blind to notice before, the slight tension in her shoulders, the way she licked her lips before answering, the extra second she took to think before responding. Something was wrong. The next day, I tested the waters. "Hey, how's Lisa doing?" I asked over breakfast, stirring my coffee. "Everything okay with her and Greg?" She hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second, but long enough. "Oh, yeah, they're working through it." Funny, because Lisa's social media was filled with pictures of her and Greg, happy as ever, no sign of any drama. I knew, because I checked. That's when I realized. I wasn't looking at a single slip-up. I was looking at the beginning of a pattern. That night, I started watching more closely. Sophia's phone, once left on the counter without a second thought, was now always with her. Face down. Always on silent. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd exit the app with a smoothness that felt too practiced. Then there were the sudden errands. "I need to run out for some groceries," she said one evening, grabbing her purse. I glanced at the fridge, fully stocked from my last grocery run. "We're out of something?" "Yeah, just some things I forgot." She left before I could ask what. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. I wasn't the jealous type. Never had been. But something about the way she came back, hair slightly tousled, a faint flush on her cheeks, the way she avoided my eyes when I asked if she found everything, made my stomach knot. Still, there were no hard proofs. No lipstick-stained collars, no mysterious perfume lingering on her skin, no explicit messages that spelled it out. Just small inconsistencies. Little details that, on their own, meant nothing. But together, they formed the beginning of a story I didn't want to read. So I did what any magician does when he senses he's being played. I stopped being the trusting husband. I started being the audience, watching the performance, waiting for the moment when the trick would reveal itself. And when it did, she wouldn't even see it coming. I stopped being a husband and became an observer. The first rule of magic, the eyes deceive, But patterns don't lie. Sophia's movements, once natural, now had a rehearsed quality to them. The way she kissed me goodbye before leaving the house felt forced, a performance just convincing enough for an audience that wasn't paying attention. But I was. Every touch, every glance, every delay in her responses became data points in an equation I was slowly solving. She had changed her phone's passcode. That was the first concrete shift. It used to be my birthday, something easy, something sentimental. Now, when I casually reached for it, pretending to move it off the couch, the screen lit up and required a new code. She snatched it from my hand with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. New security update. Work stuff, she said, slipping it into her pocket. Work? Sophia was in marketing. The only security threat she faced was an outdated social media strategy. That was my first confirmation. She was hiding something. The second came 2 nights later. She had been stepping out more, claiming last-minute errands, sudden plans with Lisa, late-night drives to clear her head. But patterns, even when concealed, have a way of revealing themselves. This time, I noted the time she left. 8:17 p.m. I waited exactly 20 minutes before calling Lisa. Hey, is Sophia with you? My voice was casual, light. Lisa hesitated. Too long. Oh, yeah. She just stepped out to grab something, but she's been here for a bit. Lie. I smiled, even though she couldn't see me. Oh, okay. I was just wondering if she wanted me to pick up anything on my way. Oh, no, she's good. I think she'll be home soon. Lisa wasn't a good liar. When Sophia came home an hour later, her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly out of place. She had a bag of snacks in her hand, something she probably picked up last minute to sell the lie. Hey, sorry I was out so long. Lisa and I got caught up talking. I nodded, hiding the amusement that curled in my stomach. Yeah, I called her. A flicker of panic crossed her face before she masked it. Oh, yeah, just to see if you needed anything. I watched her brain race behind her eyes. If she admitted Lisa wasn't with her the whole time, she'd be caught in a lie. If she doubled down, she'd have to pray Lisa kept her story straight. She forced a yawn, stretching. I'm exhausted. We were just talking about life, you know? Girl stuff. I let it go. For now. The third confirmation came in the form of an address. I needed more than just inconsistencies. I needed proof. And proof requires patience. So I started small. I checked the car's mileage before she left for errands. Noted the numbers. When she returned, I checked again. The distance traveled didn't match the location she claimed. A grocery store 3 miles away shouldn't add 32 extra miles to the odometer. That meant a secondary location. Next, I synced our Google accounts. She didn't realize we were still connected from when we set up our home assistant years ago. A simple check in the settings revealed recent locations. A hotel. Across town. Booked twice in the past month. It was almost disappointing. She wasn't even creative. The final test was a simple one. I waited until she was in the shower, then called her office. Hey, just checking, when did Sophia say she was working late again? Confusion on the other end. She hasn't stayed late in months. That's all I needed. When she stepped out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her, steam curling behind her, I smiled. Hey, babe, I said, voice smooth. What was that project you've been working on at the office? She blinked. Which one? The one that kept you late last Thursday. A single beat. A hesitation. The kind that only comes when someone needs an extra second to recalibrate their lie. Oh, just some client branding updates. Kind of boring. I nodded, stepping forward, brushing a hand down her arm like I believed her. Like I still cared. Must have been stressful. She exhaled, letting her shoulders relax. Yeah, but you know how it is. I did. But she had no idea. Because I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her audience. And I was waiting for the grand reveal. It happened faster than I expected. I had been preparing myself for weeks, gathering details, tracing movements, connecting dots she didn't even know existed. But no amount of preparation can ever fully brace you for the moment reality punches you in the gut and leaves you breathless. The universe has a dark sense of humor. After all my careful planning, after all the tracking, the checking, the waiting, it wasn't some elaborate scheme that gave her away. It was something as stupidly mundane as a forgotten phone. She had left it on the nightstand, face up, unlocked. A rare moment of carelessness. Or maybe arrogance. Maybe she had convinced herself I was still blind, still the devoted husband who would never suspect, never check, never question. But I had been watching. I had been waiting. And when the screen lit up with a new message, "Last night was incredible. I can still taste you." I didn't hesitate. I picked up the phone. There was no Lisa this time. No excuses about work or errands or a friend in need. Just a single name at the top of the thread, Daniel. A name I didn't recognize, but after 2 minutes of scrolling, I knew exactly who he was. A colleague. Someone from her office. Married. And according to these messages, their affair had been going on for months. Explicit texts. Details of stolen moments in hotel rooms, in his car, in places I never would have thought to suspect. Plans for their next rendezvous. And worst of all, messages mocking me. He has no idea, babe. It's almost too easy. I exhaled slowly, feeling something deep inside me shift. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just the sickening realization that the woman I had built my life with had been sleeping with another man behind my back. It was the sheer audacity of it. The arrogance. The belief that I was too blind, too trusting, too stupid to ever figure it out. I wasn't angry. Not in the way most men would be. I didn't see red, didn't want to throw things, didn't feel the need to scream or demand explanations. I just felt cold. A magician doesn't react to a trick gone wrong. He adapts, shifts, redirects. And that's exactly what I was going to do. I put the phone back down exactly as I found it. I didn't want her to know. Not yet. When she came home that evening, she kissed me the way she always did. Soft, familiar, a well-rehearsed act. I kissed her back, running my fingers gently down her spine, letting her believe I was still blind. Let her have her illusions. Because soon, I would show her what true deception really looked like. She thought she was playing a game. She thought she was winning. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake? Underestimating me. I lay in bed that night, my back turned to her, listening to the slow, steady rhythm of her breathing. She slept peacefully, unaware that the man lying beside her was no longer her husband. Not in the way she thought. The moment I read those messages, something inside me changed. The love, the trust, the blind devotion, they all crumbled away like a stage prop dismantled after a performance. All that remained was focus. Cold, calculated focus. She had spent months perfecting her deception, lying to my face, sneaking around, mocking me in private messages to another man. And all the while, she believed she was invincible, that I was too naive, too comfortable, too stupid to notice the cracks in the illusion. Now, it was my turn to be the magician. I started with research. Not on her, on him. Daniel. Mid-level marketing executive. Married for 7 years. 2 kids. A mortgage. The kind of man who had everything to lose. He wasn't reckless, at least not in his public life. His social media was clean, curated. A dedicated family man, at least on the surface. But his weakness was exactly that, his image. Sophia thought I'd be focused on her, that I'd confront her, rage at her, beg her for answers. But why settle for small tricks when you can pull off a grand illusion? I spent the next week gathering everything I could. I copied every incriminating message, saved every explicit photo she had sent him. I accessed our shared cloud account, finding old screenshots of their plans, their stolen weekends. I traced hotel bookings, cross-referenced credit card statements. I didn't need a private investigator. I had her phone, and she had been careless. Next, I turned my attention to his wife, Emma. It took me 3 days to find her on social media, another 2 to map out her routine. She was a fitness instructor at a high-end gym, ran a personal blog on wellness, and had a significant online following. Her brand was built on perfection, the perfect body, the perfect home, the perfect family. I wondered if she knew, if she suspected, if she ever lay awake at night, listening to the same subtle shifts in her husband's behavior that I had in Sophia. I didn't reach out to her yet. Timing was everything. A magician never reveals his trick before the final act. Instead, I started setting the stage. First, I made sure Sophia had no idea I knew. I played my role to perfection, the loving, oblivious husband. I kissed her in the mornings, sent her sweet texts, even planned a date night. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to believe that she had me exactly where she wanted me. Meanwhile, I got closer to her closest people, her colleagues, her friends, even her family. Subtly, carefully, I planted the first seeds. I let slip little comments, half-truths, things that would sit in their minds like a splinter. Sophia's been working late a lot, hasn't she? She's been so secretive lately. I hope she's okay. A raised eyebrow here, a lingering glance there. Small details that wouldn't mean much at first, but would later. Then, I started the illusion of distance. I stopped initiating conversations as much. I let her text sit unread for a little longer than usual. I acted just a fraction colder, a little more detached. Not enough for her to panic, but just enough for her to notice. I wanted her to feel the change. I wanted her to start doubting her control. And then, the final move. I created an anonymous email account. Attached all the proof, screenshots, call logs, bookings, photos. I wrote a polite, concise, devastating message and scheduled it to be sent to Emma, to Daniel's boss, and to select colleagues from his office. The moment that email went out, Daniel's life would start unraveling. His wife, his family, his career gone in an instant. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was that Sophia wouldn't know it was me. She would only see the explosion, the fallout, the wreckage. She would watch her lover's life disintegrate, his wife leaving him, his job firing him, his friends turning on him. And in the midst of that chaos, she would feel something she never expected to feel, a fear. Because if his world had just collapsed, how long until hers did? I had every intention of watching her burn, but I wouldn't have to strike the match. She had already doused herself in gasoline. All I had to do was wait for the spark. Everything was set. The stage was built, the audience unknowingly seated, and the final act was about to begin. Sophia had no idea she was walking straight into her own downfall. I had timed everything perfectly. The email exposing Daniel's affair was scheduled to send at precisely 7:45 p.m. on Friday night, a time carefully chosen for maximum impact. His wife Emma would be home, unwinding from her day, scrolling through emails. His colleagues, especially his superiors, would be finishing up the last stretch of their work week, checking their inboxes. There would be no way to contain the damage. And Sophia? She would be exactly where I needed her to be, by my side, in front of an audience, with nowhere to run. That Friday, I played the part of the loving, unsuspecting husband one last time. "Let's go out tonight," I suggested over breakfast, sipping my coffee with a smile that felt almost too easy. "We haven't had a proper date night in a while." Sophia blinked, caught off guard. I could see the wheels turning in her mind. She had a plan, an excuse ready, probably some vague lie about working late or meeting Lisa. But I had cornered her. If she said no, it would look suspicious. If she said yes, she'd have to cancel whatever rendezvous she actually had planned. She hesitated for only a second before nodding. "That sounds great, babe," she said, her smile just a little too bright. "Where are we going?" "A surprise." That night, I dressed sharp enough to be memorable. I made sure she did too. I chose a high-end restaurant, the kind where everyone sees everyone. The kind where whispers travel fast and reputations are built or broken over glasses of overpriced wine. I wanted her to be seen. I wanted her to be recognized. We arrived at 7:30 p.m. The restaurant was buzzing, filled with familiar faces. Some of her coworkers were there, mutual friends, people who knew us as the perfect couple. Sophia seemed relaxed, unaware that in 15 minutes, her world would start to collapse. We ordered wine, chatted. I watched her across the candlelit table, knowing this was the last time she would ever feel in control. She thought she was winning. Then, 7:45 p.m. It started with a vibration, her phone, screen lighting up. She glanced at it, brows furrowing, but didn't unlock it immediately. Then another vibration. And another. More messages, more alerts. And then, her phone rang. She hesitated before answering, her voice cautious. "Hey, Lisa, what's up?" I knew it wasn't Lisa. I watched her expression shift from confusion to panic. Her grip on the phone tightened. "Wait, what? No, that's not," her voice wavered. Her eyes darted up at me, as if suddenly aware of my presence in a way she hadn't been before. She forced a laugh, shaking her head. "That's ridiculous. Who told you that?" But whoever was on the other end wasn't laughing. Her face paled. She looked like someone had just dumped ice water down her spine. I took a slow sip of my wine, enjoying the show. She ended the call abruptly, fumbling with her phone as more messages came through. I didn't say a word. I let the silence stretch between us, let her feel the weight of it. And then, her second phone rang. The one she thought I didn't know about. The one she always kept buried deep in her bag. She froze. For the first time in our entire marriage, she looked trapped. "Are you going to answer that?" I asked, my voice calm. She opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed the phone and rushed out of the restaurant. I followed. Outside, she had the phone pressed to her ear, pacing in sharp, panicked movements. "Daniel, what the hell is going on?" I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her unravel. She didn't see me. "Emma knows?" "How? Who sent it?" No, You don't understand. A pause. Her breath hitched. What do you mean your boss got it too? And then, the final blow. What do you mean you're being fired? She stumbled back, gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles went white. This was it. The moment she realized everything had come crashing down. When she turned, she finally saw me. Her face went slack. She must have seen something in my expression, something that made her breath hitch in her throat. You, she whispered. I stepped forward, adjusting my cuffs. Cool, collected, completely in control. Me, I confirmed. Her mouth opened and closed like she wanted to argue, wanted to deny it. But what was there to deny? The evidence was in her hands. The chaos was unraveling around her in real time. How could you? How could I? I echoed, amused. No, Sophia. The real question is, how could you? Silence. She had nothing to say. The restaurant door opened behind us. People had noticed. People were watching. Good. She deserved to be seen like this. She wasn't the magician anymore. She wasn't even the audience. She was the trick that failed. And I was the one who had pulled it off. Sophia's breathing was shallow, ragged. Her eyes darted around the restaurant patio, searching for an escape, for a way to undo what had already been set in motion. But there was no way out. She had spent months crafting a lie, building a web of deception she thought she could control. And now, in the space of just a few minutes, that web had collapsed around her, trapping her inside. I stood there, watching, waiting, letting her feel it. Her grip on her phone tightened as she stared at me, her lips parting in a desperate attempt to speak, to explain, to manipulate. But nothing came out. For the first time, she was speechless. Let me guess, I said, my voice steady measured. This isn't what it looks like. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed, her mind scrambling for a response. Daniel's wife just called me. She finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper, as if saying it out loud would somehow make it less real. She thinks we. Oh, she doesn't think, Sophia, I interrupted, tilting my head. She knows. Just like his boss knows. Just like half of your office probably knows by now. Her face contorted in something between fear and disbelief. She shook her head rapidly. No. Someone must have sent it to them. This is a mistake. It has to be. I took a step closer, lowering my voice just enough that she had to really listen. It's not a mistake. It's justice. Her body went rigid. Her breathing hitched. That was the moment she knew. You. She took a shaky step back. You did this. I smiled. Not cruelly, not angrily, calmly. Because I had already won. You spent months lying to my face. I continued, my voice smooth, deliberate. Sneaking around, covering your tracks, thinking I'd never figure it out. Did you really believe I'd never see the trick? She blinked rapidly, her hands shaking now. No. I didn't mean for it to. I was going to. She cut herself off, pressing her lips together like she realized that whatever excuse she was about to make wouldn't work. Because nothing would work. I gave her time. Let her drown in the silence. Let her feel the weight of every stolen night, every lie, every excuse. Then I turned my head toward the restaurant, toward the people watching. Because they were watching. They had seen everything. Some pretending not to look, others whispering, murmuring, piecing together the drama unfolding before them. And Sophia knew it. Her face burned red, her breathing shallower now. She glanced around, like a trapped animal trying to assess its chances of escape. Can we just go somewhere else and talk? Please. I let out a soft chuckle. Talk. She nodded rapidly, her hands trembling as she reached for mine, but I stepped back. The rejection hit her like a slap. You don't get to decide how this ends, I said, my voice as even as ever. You already made your choice, over and over again. And now, you live with it. Her lips parted, but whatever plea she wanted to make never came. A new vibration against the table. She looked down. More messages. More fallout. Daniel was probably calling, panicking, watching his own world fall apart. She had nothing left. You said you were going to Lisa's that night, I said, stepping around her, slow and deliberate, forcing her to turn to keep up with me. But you were in a hotel across town. You said you were working late, but your office says you haven't stayed late in months. And when I checked the car's mileage, the numbers didn't match any of your stories. Her knees nearly buckled. She knew she was caught, but her brain was still trying to find an exit, to rewrite the script, to regain control. You planned this, she whispered, horrified. I tilted my head. What did you expect, Sophia? That I'd cry? That I'd beg you to choose me? I let the silence stretch before delivering the final blow. You were never that important. She flinched. A physical reaction, like the words had struck her harder than a slap ever could. I turned toward the restaurant. Some of her colleagues were right there, pretending to be focused on their meals, but I saw it. The whispers. The realization. Sophia's reputation was already unraveling. I checked my watch. You should probably call Daniel. I hear he just lost his job. And from the look on your face, I'd say Emma isn't taking this lightly, either. Her eyes widened in fresh panic. She turned back to her phone, scrolling through frantic messages, and for a moment, it was like I didn't even exist anymore. She had bigger problems now. I took in the moment. She had mocked me in her texts to him. She had laughed at me behind my back. She had believed I was a fool. And yet, in the end, she was the one left scrambling. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my wallet, and dropped just enough cash on the table to cover my drink. Then I adjusted my cuffs, straightened my jacket, and without another word, I walked away. She didn't follow. She didn't call my name. Because she knew. She had already lost me. And that was a loss she'd have to live with for the rest of her life. Sophia's world fell apart exactly as I had planned. It didn't happen all at once. No, that would have been too easy. Instead, it was slow, excruciating. A controlled collapse where every piece of her carefully crafted life came undone, bit by bit, day by day. First came the social fallout. The restaurant incident had been spectacularly public. Too many familiar faces had seen her panic, her desperation. And while some people might have been willing to give her the benefit of the doubt at first, the email that had exposed Daniel had also left a trail leading straight back to her. Her friends distanced themselves almost immediately. No one wanted to be associated with the woman who had been caught having an affair with a married coworker. Some of them texted me, not her, offering vague condolences, not knowing exactly what to say. Others simply cut her off in silence, deleting her from group chats, unfollowing her on social media, treating her like she had suddenly become radioactive. Lisa, her so-called best friend, was one of the first to turn. She lied to me, Lisa told one of our mutual friends. Used me as an alibi for months. And the worst part? She didn't even have the decency to tell me herself. I had to find out from everyone else. Sophia must have thought she could control the narrative, that she could explain, that she could salvage some of her reputation. But a scandal like this spreads faster than the truth. Then came the professional fallout. Daniel was fired. No severance. No references. A complete disgrace. His wife had made sure of that. And with him out of the picture, Sophia became the next logical target. Her company had a reputation to maintain. An employee scandal of this magnitude? Bad for business. Especially when the affair had taken place under their noses, in hotels booked on corporate cards, during work hours. She was called into a meeting by HR the Monday after the exposure, thinking maybe, just maybe, she could salvage it. She was wrong. By noon, her desk was cleared. Her LinkedIn quietly switched to open to work, but no one was hiring someone whose name had been whispered through every networking circle as the woman who ruined her career over a fling. But the real devastation? That came when she realized she had no one left to turn to. Her family had been mortified. Her mother, who had adored me, couldn't even look at her when she called, voice shaking, asking to explain. What is there to explain, Sophia? Her mother had said. You threw away your husband for a man who isn't even willing to stand by you now. That was the final twist of the knife. Because Daniel wasn't standing by her. His wife left him immediately, taking the kids and half of everything he owned. He had no job, no home, no support system. And in his mind, Sophia was to blame for it all. So when she tried to reach out, to call him, to cling to the one person who had been willing to risk it all with her, he ignored her, blocked her number, deleted her from his life. Because why would he want her now? She was poisoned. And then there was me. I moved forward effortlessly. It was almost too easy. I thrived in the aftermath, not because I needed to, but because I wanted her to see what she had lost. I made sure to live well. I took the vacation we had been planning alone and posted every perfect moment. Smiling, relaxed, completely unbothered. I started going out more, reconnecting, meeting new people. Because why waste time mourning someone who had never truly valued me in the first place? And Sophia? She watched. Oh, she watched. She never reached out directly. She wasn't that bold. But I knew she was keeping tabs, checking my social media, watching my life unfold without her, hoping, maybe, that I was miserable, that I was struggling. But I wasn't. Because while I had lost nothing, she had lost everything. Sophia's life was in ruins. And the best part? I never had to raise my voice. Never had to argue. Never had to beg for an explanation. Never had to listen to half-hearted apologies that meant nothing. The moment she made her choice, she had handed me all the power, and she never even realized it. It had been months since the night everything came crashing down, and yet, the echoes of my revenge were still rippling through her life. She had no job, no reputation, no safety net. She had tried to rebuild, of course, they always do. A few carefully worded posts on social media, pretending like everything was fine, like she was focusing on herself. But the problem with public humiliation is that people don't forget. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she had moved into a small apartment across town, a far cry from the home we once shared. No one invited her to events anymore. The colleagues she used to gossip with at work avoided her like she was contagious. Lisa had cut her off completely. And her family? They barely spoke to her. She had traded everything for a cheap thrill, and now she had to live with the consequences. But here's the thing. She wasn't done suffering yet. Because people like her, they don't regret the betrayal. They regret getting caught. And that's why she was still watching. Still checking my life from a distance. I knew because, every now and then, I would get a notification, an accidental like on a post. A view on a story. A moment of weakness where she couldn't help but check what she had lost. And what did she see? Me, thriving. Traveling. Looking better than ever. Surrounded by new people, new experiences. Living a life she could have had if only she hadn't been so foolish. I never blocked her. That would have been mercy. Instead, I let her see everything. Because while she was trapped in the wreckage of her choices, I was out there, winning. She had once believed I was blind, that I was easy to deceive, that I would never see through her act. But I was never the fool. She was. And now, she was the one left wondering, what if? But there are no second chances. No do-overs. Some mistakes you pay for forever. Now, let me ask you this. If you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Or would you have gone even further? Bye-bye.